In this section, we're going to combine the earlier ideas of code with the ideas of images and pixels and RGB numbers to sort of bring that together. Now, the examples in this section will just manipulate one pixel at a time, and then in the next section, we'll scale it up to be able to do thousands of pixels at a time. So to get started, I want to look at this image called x.png, and this image is tiny, which I can point to it here. So it's a 10 by 10 image. It's there, shown on the page. And it's a black image with a white X drawn on it. And as I said, it's quite small, but we'll show it a little bit bigger in a second. So the PNG is an image format, portable network graphics, just like JPEG is a format, which you might be more familiar with. So those are both image formats. So in this case, what I want to look at here is some code that loads the x.png image and displays it. So this will just be a first very simple example of code that works with images. So here's the code in here, and I'll just talk about what each line does. So this first line, image equals new simple image of x.png. What this does is the right-hand side essentially loads the x.png image into memory, and we'll talk in more detail later on what memory is, but suffice to say that's sort of it gets into the computer so the computer can work on it. So once I've got the image, then the equal sign here just stores it into a variable, which I'm going to call image, just like we've seen variables before. The second line, image.setZoom20, what that does is it calls the setZoom function, which is something that images have, and it passes the number 20. And all this does is it sets an option to show the image at 20x size. And so that's just something we'd use for a small image like this, just so it shows up big enough that we can see it. And then finally, print image. It's very similar to what we've seen before. That just prints the image over to the right-hand side, just as we saw strings with numbers before. So here, I'll just try it. So if I run this, what you see is here's x.png shows up over here. And you can actually count 1, 2, 3, 4. You can actually count over and see it is, in fact, 10 pixels by 10 pixels. And it's being displayed here at 20x size. So actually, I could change this number here. So if I change this to 10 and then run it again, then okay, well now it's only 20x. And if I put like a 40 here and run it, then okay, well that's much bigger. So I'll put it back to 20. So that's just a first example of a little bit of code, but we're sort of going down the path of being able to load and manipulate images. Right. So to make this a little more interesting, I want to extend the code to be able to deal with individual pixels. So I'm going to add a couple lines in the middle of the program here. So this line, pixel equals image.getPixel 0, 0. What that does is it goes to the image, and it's going to get a reference to a particular pixel, whatever xy coordinates we specify here. So 0, 0 refers to the upper left pixel. So it gets a reference to the upper left pixel and stores that in a variable pixel. And then this line, pixel.setRed255, that calls a function Pixel has called setRed. And what setRed does is it takes in any number here between the parentheses, and whatever that number is, it takes it in and it sets the red value of the pixel to be that number. So I'm going to run this. We can just see what it does. And what you see is what the code has done is obtained a reference to this, the upper left pixel, and it was black before. And recall each pixel has the three numbers in it, red, green, and blue. And so what this code does is it went to the red number and it changed it to 255, just overwriting whatever was there before. So when we see it, well, okay, of course, it shows up as a red pixel. So there's a setRed to change the red values. There's an analogous function setGreen and setBlue. So we have these three, setRed, setGreen, and setBlue. And so with those, we can just change the red, green, and blue values to be whatever we want. And I'll mention it as an aside. So there I've just introduced three functions. There's the separate page, image functions reference, that just lists all the functions in a table. So for some later exercise, you can go see that if you want to remember what a function does. But usually for the lectures, I will just, if I'm going to use a function, I'll just, as I'm going, I'll talk about it. So what I want to do to demonstrate how these functions work is just go through a bunch of examples, just use them to actually do something. All right, so here, so the format of this is I've got a little code area here with some starter code in it, And then in this table down here, I've just listed a bunch of little challenge problems, like, oh, set something to be green or yellow or whatever, and we'll go through them. For each one of these, on the right-hand side, there's this little show button, and so you could click that to see the solution code. So later on, you can go to this page yourself, and the experiments I've tried, you can just try yourself or try variations of them or whatever. All right, so let's try this first one. Well, actually, here, I'll run the code first, just see what it does. OK, so right now, it's just getting pixel 0, 0 and setting it to red, so that I've sort of seen that before. All right, so what does the first problem say? Set pixel 0, 0 to be green. So the form here is, in English, it'll say, well, here's some effect we'd like you to get. And in a sense, what the steps we're going through here is to think about, well, what would be in the domain of code, in terms of function calls and numbers, what are the series of operations we want to do to get that effect? So you're sort of translating, essentially, from English into computer. So in this case, it says set it to be green. So what I want to do that is, instead of calling the set red function, I'll just change it to call set green. So let's try that. And there we go. We get a green pixel instead. All right, let's try the next one. The next one says set pixel 0, 0 to be yellow. So, all right. Well, so in order for the pixel to appear yellow, what I want is for both the red and green values to be 255. As we know, yellow equals red plus green. So to do that, to change both the red and the green, I'm going to copy this line and I'll paste it in here. And I'll just change this one to red. So I'm relying on the fact that once I've got the reference to the pixel, I can do multiple things to it. So on this first line, I call set red, I change the red value, and then I can call set green on the next line to change the green. And the code will just go through and do each one of those things in turn. So let's try that. Yeah, sure enough, now I get yellow. This sort of goes back to the idea that there is this pixel. It really just has these 3 numbers in here, and here I'm writing code line by line to kind of reach in there and change those numbers. Let's try the next one. Set pixel 1, 0 to be yellow. Where is that pixel? So that goes back to this line, the image.getPixel line, which I haven't changed up to now. So the way this works is whatever numbers I specify, 0, 0, whatever, that's just a way of identifying a different pixel inside of here. So if I say 1, 0, that's going to get the pixel at x equals 1, y equals 0. So the convention is it's x then y. So if I run that, we can just see what it does. So what you see is it's 1 over to the right. So really, we could just specify any number here. I could say, 2, 4. And we'll just see where that is if I run it. Oh, OK, apparently that's over here. So this goes back to what I was saying a couple of sections ago, that that's x equals 0, that's x equals 1, that's x equals 2. We're not going to play with a lot of detail of messing with different x, y values. We just have to appreciate that even if I have a million pixels here, there is this x, y scheme where we could dial it in with a particular x, y number to dial into exactly a particular pixel. Alrighty. So next one says set pixel 0, 0 to be white. So I'll change this back to be pixel 0, 0. What do I do to red, green, blue to make white? The answer is I want to set all 3 values to 255. So notice instead of retyping pixel dot whatever it is by hand, a lot of times I find it easier to copy an existing one and then just edit it a little bit. So I'm going to put in a third call here, pixel dot set blue 255. So the result of all 3 of these, let's try it. Yeah, sure enough, it sets it to be white. So I've set all 3 values to be 255 there. So there's a couple more problems here. I'm actually not going to work, but if you want to, you could go to this page and try any number of experiments or try those as well. And then once you're comfortable with that kind of material, then we'll be ready for some exercises.